On today's Locked On Senators, the Final Four is set for this year's Stanley Cup.
And we continue our 2024 NHL Draft Prospect Profiles with 3 more defensemen, and these ones, all right shot.
Sens fans are going to love hearing that and more on today's edition of the Locked On Senators podcast. It's your team every day.
Your Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
I'm Jake Sanderson, and you're listening to Locked On Senators podcast.
I'm Tim Stützle, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
Welcome inside episode 1050 of the Locked On Senators podcast. I'm Ross Levitan on the outskirts of enemy territory in Winnipeg, Manitoba, alongside Brandon Pillar up in the Blue Mountains. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 with any winning $5 bet. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. You can also follow the show on social media. We're at Sen Central on Twitter, LockedOn.Senators on Instagram. The show is free and available on all podcast platforms, including on YouTube, where we say hello. Remind you that a like, comment, and subscription go a long way to helping the show grow. So comment, go Sens, go below, and make sure to check out all our individual 2024 draft profiles leading up to June 28th in Las Vegas. Today is Tuesday, May 21st, and Pilsy, by then, there will be a Stanley Cup awarded. The Final Four is set, and both of our Cup champs are still alive.
Yep, but Ross, you're burying the lead. What everyone is so excited to learn from the Final Four being set is finally the hockey world knows where the Ottawa Senators will be selecting their second first-round pick. 25th overall. Let's go. I feel good about 25th overall. Obviously, it doesn't have the same oomph as a 7th overall pick, but 25th overall, Ross, from where we've got our rankings, I think there's some good players the Ottawa Senators can target there. We can get into that now, or if you want to get into the Final Four.
Well, there's a lot of different directions we can go here. It's an exciting time for hockey. It's an exciting time for Sens fans. Look, the coaching search was a 2-week process on our show, a lot longer for Steve Staios, but glad we can get that set. Travis Green is in charge. Now it's about building out the organization because the cupboards were left barren. So yes, 25th overall is going to be huge. And the fact that as we're approaching that range in our rankings today, we're down to 60. We've already done 20, if you can believe it, through our draft rankings. Lots of defensemen and lots of right shot defensemen, which is almost convincing me as we continue to learn more about these guys. Take the high skill forward with the 7th overall pick, because you will be able to get that positional need taken care of both at 25 and 39 if they want. They can get 2 defensemen, and I think that would be right in the range of a lot of great players.
Yeah, Ross, I'm coming around here. I know previously my whole thing was, look, they need a right shot defenseman so bad, and the only way you can get these guys is in the draft. There's some really, really high-end right shot defensemen that could be available in the top 10, so I was full on that train. But now that we've done a little more research, there's a lot of defensemen that we're covering in this part of our draft prospect profiles. You can find a right shot defenseman later. So if they decide to go for a forward with that first pick, Ross, I'm okay, because, I mean, if we're looking at the Sens pick 25th overall, just in that range, Ross, there's 2 guys that you and I are really interested in, and they've got the Ottawa ties. Like, you could look at a guy like EJ Emery. I know you're high on him, Ross. Get the Nodak Sens train cooking again, or dip your toe back into the local watering hole. Henry Muse from the Ottawa 67s is available in that range too, probably. So there are options if you miss out on that right-hand shot defenseman. I shouldn't say miss out. If you go in a different direction, rather than picking a right shot defenseman with 7th overall, you can find guys of that position later on, not only with your second first round pick, but the second round pick as well, there's guys there too.
And EJ Emery, no relation to Ray Emery, but his dad played for the Ottawa Rough Riders in the CFL. Eric Emery, a Louisiana native who grew up in Compton, California. EJ Emery represents the U.S., but he grew up in Surrey, British Columbia. The mom's side of the family's Canadian.
Wow.
So
that's athletic. A lot of geography going on for that family. Holy.
Yeah, no doubt. And now he's going to North Dakota to the Ralph to get a next step in his development. But yeah, really exciting times with the Stanley Cup playoffs too. We'll be covering that 25th overall pick. And I tweeted out at Send Central the other day because 26th overall, they had that home run back in 1999. Where were you when Martin Havlat was drafted 26th overall by the Ottawa Senators? I had to double check and make sure that was still the first round back then. It was. And the other 26th overall pick in franchise history was JBD, Jacob Bernard Docker, in 2018. They've only drafted 25th once in franchise history, and it was their very first draft. They took Chad Penny, who our guy Sens Prospects was very excited to get that name over on the timeline. So that's a Sens situation based on last night's game. Edmonton Oilers beat the Vancouver Canucks a lot closer than the game may have appeared with 12 minutes left. Cody Ceci opens the scoring. So hashtag Sens Abroad. Great to see him. And what was the bigger Sens Abroad moment? That or Connor Brown's most Connor Brown ever breakaway?
Some things don't change, Ross. And I was dialed into that first period. I passed out on the couch after that, so I missed the rest of the game. But Connor Brown, full breakaway, like from his own blue line breakaway. And as soon as that happened, I looked, I was like, oh, which Oilers player is that? Oh, it's Connor Brown. Oh, no, it's a breakaway, shorthanded. No, he's got, like, there's no way he's missing this. And of course, he's not able to come through. Like, we must have seen that 7 or 8 times, Ross, when Connor Brown was a shorthanded breakaway that he's not able to capitalize on. But nonetheless, the Oilers are able to squeak out a 3-2 win and move on to the Western Conference Finals.
A lot of people are saying this is going to be, cat food for the Dallas Stars. You buying that?
Really?
Or you think it's going to be a series? Yeah, a lot of people are saying that.
Look, I think the Dallas Stars are the better team, arguably maybe even the best team left, or regardless of left, like they might have been one of my top choices coming into these playoffs. So,
and the way they took
them seriously.
The way they took care of Vegas and Colorado back to back. I know there's some circumstances with Colorado off the ice that they had to deal with as a team, but that's an impressive 1-2 punch that they've just taken care of.
Yeah, absolutely. You can't discredit that. I don't think it's going to be a sweep or a gentleman's sweep. I think the Oilers will squeak out 2 games at home. I think it's going to be a 6-game series that the Dallas Stars take, though.
I'm taking the Oilers in 7. Let's go.
No.
Oilers to the Cup final. Let's go.
Wow.
I'm sticking with my guns. My preseason or my pre-playoff final was Edmonton versus the New York Rangers. Rangers win the Stanley Cup. I have to stick with that.
Okay, well, let me frame the question this way then. Do you think the Oilers will win, or are you hoping the Oilers will win?
If Stuart Skinner is as good as Jake Ottinger, high bar, then yes, the Oilers will win.
Okay.
I'm impressed that they did that. And look, I know like it was still the usual suspect, Zach Hyman, tip in front of the net. And right, they still get production from their top guys. The power play was clicking, although it didn't score. There was one power play goal. Nugent's goal, what ended up being the game winner was
left in the power play. Yeah,
right. But they just went game 7 with McDavid off the score sheet and got the win. It's got to be good for the camaraderie in the room. The boys love Cody Ceci. He scores. Everyone's feeling good about that. So I think from a team building standpoint and culture, I think they're going to roll into this third round. And you know that McDavid's not going to be held off the score sheet forever.
No.
But if there's someone to do it, Chris Tanev has held the top players he's played against this playoffs to nothing, to barely anything. McKinnon's numbers when he was on and off the ice, hilarious in the last round when they went head-to-head. So that's a matchup I'm already looking forward to. They know a lot of each other. Calgary, Edmonton for the last couple of years, Vancouver, Edmonton before that. So I'm excited for that Western Conference final. In the East, we talked about that a little bit on yesterday's show. Any final thoughts on the playoffs? Because we got to get to these draft rankings. There's 3 really intriguing right shot defensemen coming up, and a couple of them have my interest for sure.
Yeah, I think I'm going to be dialed into both these series, the Western Conference Final and the Eastern Conference Final. I think these are good matchups where we could see some swings back and forth here. I don't think one team's going to fully take a hold of either of these series. So it'll be good. And I think, Ross, I was kind of toying around with the different combinations that could be the final. And I've spin zoned myself into thinking no matter what the Stanley Cup final result is, there's going to be interesting storylines. It's going to be good hockey. So it's not like some years where you're like, oh God, we can't have this team up against this team in the final. That's going to be a brutal final, or the ratings are going to suck, or whatever you want to say. I don't think that's the case this year. I think the Final Four are all very interesting in their own right.
And so are these upcoming prospects. We're going to get to them next. And stay tuned for the end of the show. We're going to let you know about some plans we've got that we need your help for. That's all coming up next. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Guys, you already heard us talking about the Western Conference Finals, the Eastern Conference Final for the NHL. Don't forget about the NBA. My Minnesota Timberwolves are in the Western Conference Final as well. So we got Final Fours here, and it's time to get in on the action. Or if you're more of a baseball fan, the regular season's in full swing, and you can place your bet on every single game on FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150 whether you win or lose. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on an app that is safe, secure, and easy to use. Ross, I'm on the FanDuel website right now. Let's take a look at some of the series betting. Florida Panthers versus New York Rangers. Who do you think the favorite is?
The Rangers minus 110.
Nope. Florida Panthers minus 146.
What?
Our New York Rangers are plus 122 to win this series, Ross. I can tell that's got you thinking about how you're going to approach things moving forward. Let's do the same exercise, but in the West, who do you think's the favorite in that series?
Dallas minus 160.
Okay, closer than you think. Dallas minus 120 and Oilers are even money. So if you think you've got the edge on how these series are going to go and you know how it's going to shake out, put your money where your mouth is with FanDuel.com. And if you're a new customer, you already know about the bonus bet. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win. It's FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook.
Today's episode is also brought to you by Farm to Fork Delivery. Go check out an awesome local Ottawa company that is providing premium meat and seafood all over the province, not only in Ontario, but in Quebec and up in Nunavut as well. These are all natural, antibiotic-free, elite quality meats. And what's great about them too is that they are hand cut at the butcher's table and then flash frozen, vacuum sealed. That way, it's keeping in all the freshness into your meat. You can also just pull out what you need at any given time. No more going to the grocery store where you don't even want to know how long your meat has just been sitting there. Plus, at Farm to Fork Delivery, they have free delivery. It's so convenient. You save on gas. They send you a notification as your order is nearing your home. They've got the steaks. You know, I'm a ribeye guy. They also have fun specialty cuts. Have you had a tomahawk before? That's how to impress your dinner guests over the tomahawks are unbelievable. Poultry, they've got the raised cage-free, air-chilled. They also have sustainable seafood. So go to farmtoforkdelivery.ca and use our promo code LOSP10. That's LOSP10 for 10% off your first purchase. Taste the Farm to Fork difference. You will never go back to grocery store meats. All right, Pilsy. So, little betting tips there in the ad break. We've got our picks locked in for the Stanley Cup Final. Cannot wait for that. You've got Mika Zibanejad with the New York Rangers, still looking for his road to glory with the Stanley Cup. You've got Cody Ceci on the Edmonton Oilers. A couple guys on Dallas, Matt Duchene, Evgeny Dadonov.
Yeah, let's go, Dadonov.
And last but certainly not least, the Senators will get a third-round draft pick if it's the Florida Panthers and Vladimir Tarasenko lifting the Stanley Cup. So, Pilsy, that's the hashtag Sens Abroad angle to the Stanley Cup playoffs. And now, as Sens fans, what we know so well. Our 2024 NHL draft rankings, and coming in at number 62 with an average of 53, it's Ben Danford, a Quinte, Ontario guy, and he's been having a climbing level of success in the Ontario Hockey League.
And Ross, I feel like I'm stealing a bit of your thunder here, so maybe I'll just tee you up. Just curious, what OHL team does Ben Danford play for?
Ben Danford plays for the Oshawa Generals. He wears an A for the Oshawa Generals, part of their leadership group, and, well, that team is owned by Rocco Tullio, who happens to be a minority owner of the Ottawa Senators.
So Ross is following along with this, trying to find out if the minority owners, have any pull when it comes to draft picks. So we'll find that out. But Ben Danford, interesting player with the Oshawa Generals, right shot defenseman. That gets Sens fans, that perks your ear up a little, I'm sure. In 64 games with the Generals, he has 1 goal, 32 points, and he had 10 points in 21 playoff games. The Generals had a great playoff run until they ran into the juggernaut London Knights that handled them pretty easily. But a big thing I'm looking at with Danford here, Ross, is big improvement on his rookie season. Now, with players entering junior, I feel like usually their first year, they're just getting in the mix. They don't get a lot of ice time. So it's usually rookie seasons are pretty underwhelming, but it's the sophomore season. You really want to see a big boost. And you see that with Danford. In his rookie season, in his sophomore season, he gets 12 more points than his rookie season. And this is what you like to see for a defenseman, improves to a plus 27 over a -4. So that's a nice little jump there for Danford.
What I was a little curious to see is we already covered Luca Morelli, another right shot defenseman, also on the Oshawa Generals. And Morelli seemed to get more of the offensive looks. He had 57 points, if I'm not mistaken. He's the guy who is kind of their PP1 guy, first defenseman over the boards when they need offense. But with Danford, it feels like he's more what the coach would put out there when you're up one, when you need to get a stop. He's very mature in his game, and with that comes responsibility. And he grew up as a captain of the Quinte Red Devils. I know a lot of our Belleville listeners know of Ben Danford just as a name around town. Grew up very close, just north of Belleville. And what he's done is put himself in a position now where he's relied upon at all the high leverage situations. And I think that not only doing that in a deep playoff run, clearly coming through at times to get to that OHL final, but now he's put himself on a trajectory where next year, maybe he's going to be the guy where the coach says, well, he's so good for me in these other situations. Maybe he's a guy I should lean on as I'm looking for offense and creating different ways. Because obviously the numbers tell the tale with just 1 goal, 33 points in 64 games with Oshawa, where it's like, okay, you're not going to overwhelm scouts with your offense. So what are the little things you're going to do? And by elite prospects having him at 32, the highest of any of our 7 scouts that we use for our average, that to me tells the tale about maturity, about skate posture, about how he's able to control the puck coming out of his zone and not make mistakes. EP is very mistake adverse, whereas I think some are more, you win some, you lose some, as long as on average it's better than worse, whereas EP is very hard line when it comes to that. Bob McKenzie has him at 51 on his list, Scott Wheeler at 53, Craig Button at 63, and McKean's down at 66.
Yeah, interesting point, Ross, about EP having him so high. That's a little higher than I think I would have him. I think I'm kind of with the rest of the consensus, somewhere in the 50s, maybe early 60s. But Danford, I think a lot of his qualities, Ross, are off the ice as well. Scott Wheeler mentioned in his write-up of him in his ranking that the Oshawa Generals were actually, Wheeler says he knows they were considering him as a captain this year. And he goes on to say that probably Danford will be a captain in the OHL at some point. So great leadership qualities. He's a really confident kid. He is very comfortable talking to the media. Like Ross, you know, when you get a camera on some of these OHL kids and right away you can see they're kind of working on the cliches, like how am I just going to say a quick, easy answer, get out of here and get back to the room. Danford, you can tell he's approachable. He's interested in the questions. He's got a good energy about him. So I think really this is a guy that teams might draft him to try to build some culture in their prospect pipeline. And he's a really good two-way defenseman, well-rounded prospect. And I think basically everybody's going to draft this guy after they talk to him. I think they're going to really like what they see from him as a person. And then you hope that he can find a way to get the offensive talent to grow a little bit here.
And that's where you think the biggest need for development is in the coming 2-3 years is often maybe offensive awareness below the blue line, being able to activate a little bit more, get teammates involved.
Yeah, definitely. I think, like Wheeler mentions, he takes care of his own end first, but he's developing some more offensive instincts. So that's nice. A couple of the highlights I saw, Danford does a really good job of kind of getting lost out there at the point. And then when everyone's puck watching closer to the net, he glides in slowly and silently, and then he's wide open for an opportunity if a teammate spots him on the far side. So that's one way he's really done a good job of trying to get better offensively. But yeah, I just think this is a mature guy that teams in the late second round will have an opportunity to draft him. And I think with the right development, he could turn into a good two-way third pair guy.
Who you would trust definitely on the penalty kill. Pilsy, in terms of the Ottawa Senators, out of 5 stars, where would you value a player like this?
So at the start of the show, I talked about how I'm coming around to the idea of maybe it's not absolutely necessary to draft a defenseman with that first pick just because there's going to be more defensemen available later. Danford is one of those guys that maybe the Sens look at with their second round pick. However, I've got him at 3 stars here. Nice player. I think he's going to be a good addition to anybody that drafts him, but I think he's going to go later in the second round. So not an area where the Sens are going to be. And I don't see that one shining attribute that I want to latch onto and think, okay, I need to have Danford because of this or because of this, et cetera, et cetera. And it's not to knock him down. I think he's a well-rounded prospect that's got potential, but I just don't think he's the guy for the Sens.
He's a reliable two-way defenseman, and Ben Danford comes in at number 62 on our 2024 NHL draft rankings. All right, on the other side, 2 more. We're going all the way across the pond and then coming right back to wrap it up. And again, we will have some final thoughts afterwards. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day. All right, Pilsy. Let's actually have this conversation beforehand. We'll mention it at the end of the show as well, but I want everybody on the same page. We are planning to do a top 15 mock draft. Yes, we know you love mock drafts. We're not only going to do a top 15, we've reached out to our scouts. We will be doing our full first round that we've done now. It will be our 3rd annual full first round mock draft, but we can't make you wait 2 months for a mock draft, Pilsy. The people want more, and they want it now.
It's mock draft season, Ross. Yeah, the appetite for mock drafts is high. We did a top 8 before. Ross, we're going to do a top 15. I thought it was top 10. You're stretching it out to 15?
Maybe. What we'll do, and we'll see what kind of engagement we can get online. On Twitter, we'll post the polls. We are going to do a mock draft for the people, by the people. We are going to do a poll for each single pick. So that means 24-hour polls for each individual pick, and then the 4 choices for the next one will come up. So we got to time this out, Pilsy. Is this going to be a next week thing? Maybe 2 weeks from now? We got to give it enough time to breathe between this one and the full first round.
Yeah, I'm not sure how the timing's going to work. You guys are getting a behind the scenes of Ross and I trying to figure out how to run this show. But we have the idea in place. Yeah, the scheduling isn't always our top thing, or timing, or math. You guys know we're not math guys, but yeah, essentially what we would want to nail home is we're going to have everyone on Twitter voting for these picks. So you want to get mad at lists, look yourself in the mirror and get mad if you didn't have the right guy going 4th overall to the Columbus Blue Jackets that you think should go there. And it's not going to just be Sens fans. We're going to put in the team that's making the pick. We're going to put in their hashtag. We're going to @ the team. So
Locked On Show
mix as well. The Locked On shows. Yes, of course. Good call, Ross. So this is going to be something new that we're going to try here. And I think it could be fun.
I think it's going to be fun for sure, Pilsy. I'm really looking forward to that. And certainly everyone will be very normal about it. It's verbal meme. Normal. You know, the guy looking in the mirror, he goes, you get in there and you get mad at yourself. Because this mock draft is brought to you by the people. Coming in at number 61 on the 2024 NHL Draft Rankings for Locked On Senators is defenseman Sebastian Soini. He is out of Finland. He's been playing in the league below Liga for the most part this season. 6'2", 183 pounds, right shot, Pilsy. That's going to perk up the ears of lots of NHL scouts.
Ross, where hasn't Sebastian Soini played last season? I mean, this is classic European development. It drives, I'll speak for myself, it drives me crazy. I can't begin to understand how these poor players are trying to find their footing. It's the biggest year of their hockey career, a year before you get drafted, to put yourself in a position to be taken by an NHL team. You want to climb the ranks. You want to be comfortable. You want to be put in a spot where you can succeed. Well, Sebastian Soini, he played 3 games in the U18, 10 games in U20, 6 games in Liga, 32 games in the Métis League. I think, is that how you pronounce it? Mestis League? Mestis? My bad.
You really need this. You really need this scouting trip to Finland, dude.
I know. One day I'm gonna go. I'm gonna complete the bit, so it's not just a bit. And then to keep going, he had 14 international games U18 as well. So and then 2 playoff games with Kuvi too. So this guy, he's been all over the map here. But when you're a right shot defenseman with decent size like Soini, you're going to have a lot of teams coveting you. And I think it's clear that the 18 and the U20 leagues, he's past that. So I think that's why he was given more opportunities in the higher competition levels.
He comes in with an average rank of 52.3, and our 3 out of 7 entities that ranked him were all very close. Craig Button at 50, McKeen's at 51, and Bob McKenzie at 56. Now, does it concern me that elite prospects who put out a top 96 just completely omitted him, didn't even put him as an honorable mention? Yeah, that scares me a little bit about what his upside could be. But then I look at Bob McKenzie, who's talking NHL scouts. You know this guy's going to get picked in the first 3 rounds for sure, maybe even a top 64 first 2-round type pick. Now, what also concerns me, and we'll get into, because there are some positives here, obviously, with the type of player that he is. But one thing that kind of concerns me, Pilsy, is that this guy at no level has been a true point producer offensively. I don't need that from my defensive defenseman at the NHL level, but typically when you're at these lower levels, you will see them at some point dominate, at some point be a point per game player. At no point is he even putting up a half a point per game. So I just wonder if there's any offensive upside at the NHL level.
Well, in Soini's defense here, Ross, in 3 U18 games, he did have 3 assists. So he
give me sample size.
Hey, you said point per game. 3 assists in 3 games. That's point per game for my guy, Sebastian. So I got your back, Sebastian. Don't worry about that. But all jokes aside, yes, Ross. No one is confused whether this guy is an offenseman, a 2-way defenseman, or a shutdown defenseman. Sebastian Soini, for all intensive purposes, is a defensive defenseman, a shutdown guy.
So then I'll change it to this then. Is he mean enough to be a defensive defenseman?
Okay, there. I like this this avenue better. I think he is, Ross. Dauber prospects, mentions how he's good at clearing the front of the net. So if Pierre Dorion was around, this
Couple
guy
cross checks.
Yeah, this guy would climb to the top of his list. Nobody likes getting cross-checked in the back, so you got to have Sebastian Soini. And he plays a physical game, and he uses that frame. You've got him here at 6'2", 183 pounds. He uses that size to his advantage, which you want to see from a defenseman, especially one that doesn't have a lot of offensive upside. You got to find ways to get it done. And just because I feel like usually a defensive defenseman that plays physical, people automatically interpret that as being like, well, he probably can't skate very well. That's not the case with Soini here. He's a mobile defenseman, and that mobility allows him to defend the rush well. So look, there's not a lot of offensive skill here, but I'm okay with that, Ross. Like, if you're going to be a shutdown physical defenseman, then be a shutdown physical defenseman. I almost think, like, we talked about Ben Danford, just the profile before this, and he's a two-way guy. That's nice, but I don't know where his skill set is. Where with Soini, it's easy. He's going to shut things down. He's going to play a mean physical game, and he's going to be someone that you can rely on defensively. So I actually think Soini is a nice prospect here that late in the second round, I think teams will start considering.
I just think you already have to have a deep prospect pool if you're going to take it. It's like a bunt.
Agreed.
On this, you're not taking a swing for the fences. You're not going for the gap for a double. You're just looking to just leg out a single and away you go, because it's not going to be a grand slam. It's not even going to be a kind of guy who moves the needle in any sort of prospect pool rankings, that sort of thing. But certainly in the right circumstances, you need a guy. To me, screams like AHL and gets a taste. And maybe I'm too low on him. He's a late birthday, a June 06 birthday, so there's extra room to grow. But compared to the other players in this range, I've got him between Luca Morelli and Lucas Fisher. That's like the range that I've got him in on my chart. And those guys to me are like end of the second round, start of the third round type guys. But look, there's a reason Bob has him into the second round at 56. So there's a player in here. I'm excited to see what happens with Soini going forward. Pilsy, from a Sens perspective, what do you have Soini out of 5 stars?
Well, to stick on a Sens perspective, Ross, you know the vibes that Soini is giving me here? Andreas Englund, right?
Okay.
Like a big shutdown physical defenseman that gets drafted, still developing, doesn't really work out for him, bounces around a little. And then once he's figured out how to truly master how to be that shutdown guy, and maybe it takes a couple extra teams down the road, and maybe it's not till his late 20s he figures it out, he can be a nice third pair guy, right? Like, I feel like that's a good comparison and kind of path for Soini here. I don't think he's going to hit the ground running and he's going to jump on an NHL roster anytime soon, but there's a solid hockey player there. For me, Ross, I'm giving Soini 3 out of 5 stars. Like you mentioned, this is a guy that you draft if you've got deep cupboards and you can say, hey, we don't really have a shutdown right-hand shot guy. Let's go for him. The Ottawa Senators can't really afford to go for that safe projected pick that's not going to develop into a guy till 5-6 years. They need a little more juice there. So 3 out of 5 stars for me.
3 out of 5 stars for Pilsy on Sebastian Soini, who comes in at number 61 on our NHL draft rankings. For more, go check us out on YouTube, Locked On Senators. All right, coming in at number 60 on our 2024 NHL draft rankings, we're going out to Cape Breton, where we find Eagles defenseman Thomas Lavoie.
Yes, Thomas Lavoie is a very interesting player, Ross. And look, we talked about one right shot defenseman, then we talked about another defenseman. Why not keep the train going? Thomas Lavoie is a right shot defenseman as well. Lavoie, sorry, that's my English kicking in there.
Well, we got Max Lajoie back in the day, so this should be tip of your tongue.
Okay, Lavoie, Thomas Lavoie.
It was always funny when it was like the Dallas Stars, not to shout out their broadcast, but whoever it was, and they're just like LaJoey, and you're like, no, come on, yeah. that ain't it. But Thomas Lajoie. What I like about him,
not Lajoie,
Lavoie.
Lavoie.
This is off to a great start. What I do like about him, that's the irony here, is he's probably my favorite player that we've covered today. He's a guy who's only ranked once, and it's Bob McKenzie. But I was like, man, this guy's pedigree, I need to do some digging into the first overall pick from the 2022 QMJHL draft. Why is he not on more people's radars? Now, he is an honorable mention for both elite prospects and for Scott Wheeler, but this guy's 6'4", 215 pounds, right shot. I mean, what more do you want out of if you could like put it in a lab, a defenseman? I mean, that's probably the height, weight, handedness that you're shooting.
Yeah, I'm just as confused as you, Ross. Maybe people have a hard time pronouncing his name and they just say, forget it. But Lavoie is worth taking a look at and worth going through saying his name, which isn't even that difficult. We'll move on from that. My bad.
He's probably like Pillar?
Pile?
Pilly? Peelsy?
Peelsy? But let's get to his play on the ice. 65 games, 3 goals, 21 assists, like you mentioned, with the Cape Breton Eagles. And again, I'm going to look at the improvement from the rookie season here to sophomore. 8 more points, not a huge deal. Nice little uptick. That's what you want to see. But I'm looking anytime plus minus is egregious stats. You have to note it. Ross, in his rookie season, he was a minus 39. Jacob Chychrun couldn't even get to those cold temperatures. A minus 39, and then in his sophomore season, a plus 4. That is a huge swing. That shows you the maturity changed from this kid from after one season. And Wheeler says he moves the puck efficiently and plays a trusted style. So you start checking all these boxes here. Right shot defenseman, 6'4", 225 pounds. First overall pick of the Q draft, moves the puck efficiently and plays a trusted style. Like, this guy has a lot of really good attributes going for him.
I know. It almost feels like online dating. It's like, what's the catch? It's like, this person seems so good. What's the catch? Is it that he only put up 24 points in what's known as a very offensive driven league? Maybe the fact that year over year, it's not that much of an improvement over the 16 points he had last year in only 59 games. I'm just trying to figure out why he's not higher on lists. Because for me, out of everyone we've covered so far, and obviously we're doing a countdown, he's a top guy. And I mean, it's not outrageous to say because he's also the highest that we have ranked. But I can't say the same for other people who have just came up. My second guy right now is Will Skahan. Like, that's 1-2 right now because I can project Skahan professionally. Whereas Lavoie, for me, it's the unknown. It's like, I'm so intrigued by this guy. I need to see more of him. So he's a guy, look, you're going to hear a lot of his name, I think, after the NHL scouting combine, because this guy at his height and ability and pro frame, he should be dominating that scouting combine. And I think if he does, if he comes in first in a bunch of drills or top 3 across the board, you could see this guy vault up the public sphere, because Bob having him at 52, like, this is Tyler Kleven all over again, where I don't mean that stylistically. I think that Lavoie has a bit more poise with the puck, Kleven a lot more physical at their prospect age, but where Bob McKenzie, who speaks with NHL scouts, has him in the second round, and nobody else was giving him the time of day. That's the type of defenseman we're going to see here, and I think there's going to be a team that falls in love with Lavoie's potential and is going to take him in the second round. I see him going mid to late second round.
Ross, as it pertains to my Sens stars, I got 4 out of 5 stars here for Lavoie. I'm interested in Lavoie. I think we're seeing a player. I think he is going to dominate next year in the Q. I think he's going to be among the conversation of top 5 defensemen in the Q next season. Like, he's already an assistant captain. I think he's going to continue taking on a leadership role here. And we know the Cape Breton Eagles are a great spot to develop. We've had lots of their kind of influence on this show. So I would take a chance on him with the Senators' second round pick. Like, that's how high I am on him.
Yeah, I would. That would be That would be awesome to see. I'm very excited to see what the offense looks like next year, because that's the biggest question mark to me. It's like, where's the disconnect between how he's playing the game and why the production is not higher for Cape Breton? So we will see next year, but Thomas Lavoie comes in at number 60 on our 2024 NHL draft rankings. For more, go check us out on YouTube, Locked On Senators. All right, Pillsy, any final thoughts on today's show?
The final thoughts for me is, Ross, as we were recording, our guy, Brady Tkachuk, he cannot be stopped at the Worlds. I haven't seen a highlight for it, but I've seen some people tweet it was a nice bar down shot. So Brady Tkachuk continues to let the world know that he's captain of USA, and when he finally has the opportunity to play meaningful games, he can step up and take charge.
Okay, Pillsy, let's not pretend like a game against Kazakhstan in the round robin or a game against Latvia in the round robin are meaningful games.
More meaningful than he's played in Ottawa Senators uniform, Ross.
And Shane Pinto with an assist on the USA's second goal. So those guys are doing really well. Hey, choose your own adventure. Do you want me to be optimistic, or do you want me to be to bring in a little realism here when we come to the Conversation World Championships?
Ross, you know I'm positive Pillsy. Hit me with that optimism. Come
no,
on.
I'll finish with the optimism. That way
Choose
I make
your own adventure. Makes his choice. No, we're not doing that.
We're gonna do it as a sandwich.
Okay, I love positive sandwiches. So
I'll just remind everyone who led the World Championships in goal scoring last spring.
Oh, I don't know.
Dominic Kubalik.
Actually?
Yeah.
Damn.
But it is cool that Brady Tkachuk is currently leading the World
stings.
Championships.
That stings. I thought it might be Yuri Smejkal with the way people were talking about him out of that tournament.
No, last year Dominic Kubalik at the World Championships, he had 8 goals in 8 games, 12 points.
I do remember that. Yes. Okay, fair. Wow.
You know, he's got 1 assist in 6 games with Czechia with 2 goals. He already has a quarter of the amount of assists he had in 74 games with Ottawa this year.
Yikes.
What a world. And that was talking Dominic Kubalik. Oh, I was going to finish off. No,
where's the positivity here?
It's very cool that Brady Tkachuk is leading the World Championships in goal scoring.
Okay. Yes. Agreed.
Very cool. Very cool. I'm excited for the medal round. I keep saying it, but I am. There's going to be some great hockey games with some elite talent that want medals.
Yeah, man.
Sometimes you get off days at the World Championships. Maybe the beer was tasting a little extra tasty the night before. But when it comes down to the medal games, it's going to be must-watch TV for sure. And it's always great because it's always like a Sunday, like 9, 10 a.m. You have your coffee, you wake up, throw on LOSP in the background, and you just vibe with the World Championships. Pillsy, we got some conference championships to decide over the coming weeks. We'll dip our toes into that as things go on. #Sens Abroad. And we talked about it at the start of the third segment. The mock draft 2.0 will feature choices from you. So get ready for that coming up in the next week or two. For today, we say goodbye. For Brandon Pillar, I'm Ross Levitan. Thank you so much for watching, listening, following along, and leaving a review. This has been another edition of the Locked On Senators podcast, your team every day.